Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Resale Zone. In today's video, we're going all over feedback and how that works, and also how to deal with cases that you get on eBay. Hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. If you do, be sure to leave a like, and with that, let's get right into it.
Hey everybody, Jeff here with Resale Heroes, and I'm here with Commonlad.
Hey guys, I'm a reseller in Canada who sells video games with my partner Resale.
Yeah, and we're full-time sellers here in Canada as well, focusing on video games and collectibles. And today, on the 5th episode of the eBay Resale Zone, we're going to be talking about a lot of good stuff that new sellers need to know. And not just new sellers either, but we're going to be talking about how to handle customer messages, how to handle cases, and how to handle the feed. We're going to be explaining the feedback system and kind of how to go around that. So I don't know if you want to explain just the basic outline of the feedback system on eBay.
Oh man, yeah. So every time that you guys make a sale or even a purchase on the eBay platform, there's something called feedback. And I'd argue that for an eBay seller, this is kind of your most valuable thing that you can have, especially as a beginner. A lot of beginners will underestimate the feedback. We've talked about this before. They'll price items too high when they don't have enough feedback to justify that. They'll, expect things, they'll run into different issues like scammers and things when they don't have the feedback. So the feedback's very important. And it also will allow you to rank higher and allow you to have more consumer confidence when they're purchasing your item. So feedback is very important. And for your first few sales, the feedback is even more important. So it's one of those things that comes and goes with sales, with purchasing, but you always want to make sure that you're offering your customers the best experience so that you can get the best feedback possible for your page. And that's going to allow you to work your way all the way up to a top rated seller and eventually build your, your big page and your feedback empire, as we might call it on eBay, because again, it is sort of the most important thing that you look for as a seller.
Yeah, so to put it differently, a feedback is a review that a buyer leaves about your store after purchasing from you. And to be fair, only about 1 in 3 happy customers leave you a feedback, but almost all the unhappy customers are going to leave you feedback. So the goal, like Commonlad was saying, was to have as positive an experience as possible for all your buyers. But occasionally you will receive a negative feedback, which is the worst, or a neutral feedback, which is, it doesn't really affect you that much, but people will see it. And so essentially, a lot of the metrics on eBay are based on what is the percentage of your feedback that's positive. So if you have 10 feedback and one of them is negative, then you have a 90% positive feedback, which is considered not good. You want to have as close to 100% as possible. So early on, having a negative feedback is really bad. So like when you have more feedback, it can kind of get lost in the sea of positive feedback. And a feedback sticks around for 1 year. Like you can still see it for like ever, but it only really counts against your account for 1 year. And I believe you're only able to get it removed within 30 days. It might be 60, but like within a certain time frame. And there's nothing that eBay can do after a certain amount of time. So one thing that we didn't do for the first 6 months or so, we weren't on top of our negative feedback because there's things that you can do to get it removed. So let's say you receive a neutral feedback or a negative feedback. What are some of the things that you can do to get those removed or changed?
My favorite thing that I like to do right off the bat is I like to reach out to the buyer and I like to see if we can make some sort of agreement with them to fix the problem. Because again, you're operating a store, you need to make sure that you're offering the best customer service. And a lot of times these sort of issues with a reasonable buyer can be fixed without getting eBay involved. Now, the next step, if the buyer is not willing to work with you to get that feedback fixed or removed, and again, you can't, you have to work with them and you have to explain to them, maybe without it sounding too cliche that you're, a small business and that, you want to make this right and blah, blah, and try to make it as, as meaningful as possible. So they really feel the need to try to fix it. And again, if they're being unreasonable or they can't help you, there's the next step up, which is when you can reach out to an eBay associate, you can contact them, get on the phone, and you can try to work it out with them and potentially get a piece of negative feedback removed. That way, And I'm sure, I mean, you're kind of the customer service masters. I'm hearing it with the, I'm hearing it in the messages. We were reviewing a few of the feedback or customer cases that we were dealing with before this, and I was hearing some of the stuff you're saying. So what do you say to the customer to try to get the feedback removed? And then what do you say to eBay? I want to hear your point of view, because I know what I'd say, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good as what you're going to say to them.
Yeah. So I'm nobody's perfect, but I do have a way with words, and it doesn't always work, but at least it gives you a fighting chance. So essentially, the worst thing that someone can do is leave you a negative feedback. So that says to the world that that person had a terrible experience with you, right? And before I answer your question, I'm just going to mention a few cases where where you can just call eBay and just get it removed. Like if the feedback is ridiculous, you can just get it removed. So for example, I just wrote one down, but if we've had like 5 people in the past year leave us negative feedback that was meant for someone else. And then they sent us a message. They're like, oh, we're so sorry. We meant to leave this feedback for somebody else. So we just called eBay and we're like, look, we have the proof and the messages. This guy didn't mean to leave us a feedback. Can you just remove it? So, and another thing is, there's times where we have reached out to someone who left us a negative feedback and they never answered us. So we told eBay, listen, we offered a solution. They never got back to us. So it's not really fair to have this, they didn't want to work with us. So we were able to get some feedback removed. But a lot of it depends on the situation and what the frame of mind of the client is. So some people are just itching for a fight and they don't want to find a solution. Like some people are trying to scam you out of some things. Most people aren't. Like most people, they did get it and it's not working and they're just mad. So they just instantly leave the negative feedback without even contacting you, right? So they didn't actually give you a chance. And they do that to get your attention, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So I'll give you one example. So just right now, we sent out a PlayStation 3 console that was working here. We tested it. We played a couple games on it. Everything worked, but the guy says that it's not working. He didn't leave us a negative feedback, but if we don't address this, it could become a negative feedback. So I just told him, listen, it was working when it was here. Did you try this cable? Did you try a few different games on it? Did you try this? Did you try that? I mean, depending on what your item is, you can try to troubleshoot with them to save the sale. And if they say, no, I tried all that and it just doesn't work, then you can just say, okay, well, you can return it because it was working. But something that we do I was telling you this earlier, something that we do is if you have good pictures, you can tell if they return a different item. So if they're trying to scam you out and send you like their broken one, but they want to keep your good one, and then you don't have to refund them. But for most people, you want to try and find a solution to their problem. So sometimes something else that happened was this lady bought a Thomas the Train set of toys, and it was missing like one piece. So I guess it would have fallen out of the box and we forgot and whatever. So she sent us a message. And again, if we didn't address that, it could become a negative feedback. But so I offered her to either ship her the piece, which would cost us like $16, which would suck, or to give her $10 off of her order. So that would be less expensive for us. But so you have to present options. But the thing is, you have to realize you're dealing with someone who's probably upset with you right off the get-go. And they think they're dealing with eBay, not you. So they think they're dealing with big corporate, but they're just dealing with people working out of their house or out of their garage or whatever. But you need to be polite. You need to, but one thing that I like to say, I'll just go straight to what if someone opens an item not received case, for example. So in Canada, a lot of things don't have tracking because tracking costs starts at like $16. So if you're selling cheap stuff like a music CD or whatever, it's not going to have tracking. So if someone says that they didn't receive it, it might be true, but it's likely that it's just late. So here's an example of a message that I wrote that I read to you just earlier. And the guy said, "Hey, there's no tracking on this. I didn't get it. Can we do something about this?" And I said, "Hey, listen, person." I said, "Hi, thanks for reaching out about the delay with your item. We did send it out quickly, but it is out of our hands and in the hands of the post office to get it to you as soon as possible. It will get to you. It's just simply delayed, and it's a busy time of year with the lead up to Christmas." And then I put a little happy face. And then I said, here's the important line. Would you be open to closing this case so we can continue to be patient together? Thank you for your consideration. That's like the magic one-liner, because they will occasionally close the case, so if someone opens an item not received case, you basically provide a tracking number or lose the sale. Like, basically that's how it is. And obviously if you didn't put the tracking numbers because you don't have one, but approaching it that way means that you can occasionally get someone to be like, okay, that's fine. Some people just want an update, right? Some people are scared that you're scamming them and they just want to hear from you. So they're opening, instead of messaging you, they open a case because they think they're dealing with eBay. But by you messaging them, I would say there's about half of the people that I send this message to that will close the case and that will continue to be patient. And I mean, that helps us a lot in saving these little sales. Some people won't, and that's okay. I mean, whatever. Maybe they didn't receive it, maybe they did, but they say that they don't, and we can't prove that they do or don't. So in that case, we just end up giving them a refund. But you have about 3 days, I think it's 3 days after they open the case to act on it. So you can kind of message them every here and there to kind of ask them, oh, did you receive it yet, or whatever. So that's kind of how I try and deal with the item not received.
Yeah, and I think like most people, like you say, they think that you're eBay, and there's so many messages I've gotten where it's like, I'm not shopping on eBay again, or I don't like this platform, or whatever. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm not eBay. And so you have to look at it like that. So when people are opening a case, you might expect them to message you directly first or try to sort it out. But you have to think these people are shopping everywhere. On Amazon, do they go and they message somebody at Amazon? No, they don't do that. They open a return case or something. So that's how they automatically are brought to do that. So I like the point that you made there, where you're trying to directly reach out to them and let them know, remind them that you're an actual seller. You're a person who's just dealing with this stuff individually, and you're trying to offer a solution where you're going to work together with them. I think that's a really important thing. I like, and we both talked about this before the show, saying we, how about we wait for this order to arrive? Yeah. Can we, get to a solution for this item? Because I think the second that you start to work with them, and it's not like this big corporation against some kind of mentality, you start to have much better results with your actual with your cases, and then eventually with your feedback as well. I like the fact that you're able to sort of message buyers and get them to close the case like that, because once the case is closed, it can't be reopened. And so you've basically solved that issue of having to get eBay involved, and ideally you can work that out to the buyer's satisfaction without ever reaching out to an eBay associate, because cases are only going to be open for 4 or 5 days, I believe it is, and then they're going to automatically close. And if you don't deal with them within that time, they're most likely going to close in the buyer's favor, and you're going to lose out on that sale. So I think it's a really important thing to always be in touch with your buyers like that. And again, kind of taking advantage of that little bit of small business, a little bit of, personal, reach out to the buyer specifically and let them know that you're there for them and that you're there to help them. And I think that can really help you get some more positive feedback.
Yeah. And so we're filming this, we're in November. So we're in the lead up to Christmas, which is the busiest time of year for shipping things, for volume. I think this time of year gets 4 or 5 times the usual, maybe more, the usual volume. So even Canada Post says we cannot guarantee, even outside of COVID, this is the busiest time of year. But with COVID, they already don't guarantee delivery times. But now it's Christmas plus COVID. So we're going to be getting more of these delayed times. So it's important, because if you don't do anything with it, you just lose. They're going to get their item eventually, but you have to refund them. But if you try and work with them, you're able to save some of those. So another magic sentence that I sometimes say is, believe me or trust me when I say that we share in your frustration. I get it. Yeah, you're mad. Your $10 game isn't there yet, and the eBay told you that it would be. But you have, like I don't say it this way, but I don't say you have to understand I'm losing money here, like. But I just say,
but we're as frustrated as you.
frustration, like we're in this together, right?
Yeah.
And then you talk about the possible solution. But to get back to the feedback, so one way to get negative or neutral feedback removed is to call eBay and explain the situation to them. So here's like some. If you made a reasonable effort to fix the problem and the person doesn't want to change their feedback or they just don't respond to you, I haven't had much trouble getting these removed. If they never responded to you in the first place, you can get those removed. If they, so right now I have 2 neutral feedback that I feel are unreasonable. I'll read them to you.
Okay, here we go.
And I'm going to get them removed in the near future. So one of them said, the game got here a little later than estimated delivery date. Not the seller's fault, but the game did get here in really good condition. Thank you. Neutral feedback.
Yeah,
so
that's a problem.
That's silly. Like he even says it's not our fault that the game got there as described. I mean, whatever. I'll be able to get that removed. But until I get it removed, it shows in the queue that I have a neutral feedback, which means that they didn't really have a good experience. And the next one is, it arrived, but it came with, so this was a Blu-ray disc that was sealed. So it's brand new case, and inside there's the disc. So he said it arrived on time, but the disc was loose. But we can't do anything about that. Like if you go to Walmart right now and you shake 100 random movies that are sealed or games that are sealed, there's going to be half of them that have a loose disc. But the way that cases are built now, they don't get scratched anymore. They used to, but not anymore. So we have no control over that. Zero. So I'll be able to get that one removed too. But so as far as negative feedback goes, basically eBay, as much as possible, wants you to deal with all of that. They don't want to step in if they don't have to. So the first thing that you want to do is try and work out with your buyer a solution, whether that's a return or it's a partial refund or like whatever the situation requires, right? So like, for example, if you're selling a shirt and there's a rip that you didn't see and they're upset about it, but they still want to keep the shirt, but they're like not fully satisfied, maybe you can give them 10% off or 15% off, or like we've been able to work with a lot of people in different situations like that, where there was like some hidden damage that we didn't realize was there, but or something didn't work as well as we thought it would. But the first step is to fix the problem.
And I think too that, if I could just interrupt here, is that I think a lot of new sellers undervalue their feedback in a sense where offering a $10 return, or sorry, a $10 partial refund, or even a return for a full item and you pay the return shipping or whatever it is, when you have an unsatisfied customer, a new seller might say, oh no, it's not worth it. I'll just take the negative feedback and keep my $10. Are you kidding me? I pay $50 to not have to deal with the negative feedback. Like it's worth so much, and it's worth even more as a new seller. So it's one of those things where it's like, guys, cough up the $10 for the partial refund. People will be like, that'll fix the problem, and you get the positive feedback. And I mean, that's going to save your business.
Yeah. And the thing is, those $10 do add up, but you can write them off as expenses. But the negative feedback can also add up if you don't play your cards right. So like we have so much feedback now, and I do a lot of things that I don't even need to think about it anymore that we didn't used to do. So if we would have kept going the way we were going, we would probably have 10 times as much feedback negative than we do now, because now we can get most of them removed or changed. So the first step, like I was saying, is to fix the problem or work with the buyer towards a solution, and then talk about there's something called a feedback revision request. So every 200 feedback that you have, you are able to request to a buyer to change his feedback. Now you want to confirm with him before you send it that he's going to change it, because you can't, there's no take backsies And so if he says he's going to change it, then you send him, like, basically you fix the problem and then ask them if they'd be open. Would you be open to changing your feedback? They'll say yes or no. Well, assuming they say yes, then you can send them a feedback revision request, which is just in the back office. And then they can change it to whatever they want. They can change it to neutral, or they can change it to positive. So most people will be pretty chill once you fix their problem. And once they know you're on their side, most people will be willing to change the feedback. Now, you only have a certain amount of these to go around. So you want to use these strategically. You want to use them on the negative feedback. Don't waste them on the neutral feedback. I mean, if someone leaves you a neutral feedback, they're basically saying, it was okay. I wish it was better, but it wasn't terrible. But you want to remove the people that are saying that it was a terrible experience. And we do get like a fair amount of negative feedback, but we're able to get almost all of them changed by fixing their problem, or straight out removed when they're just not reasonable. And like another example is that a while ago we shipped something to somebody. All right. And it's I don't have one here, but it's a Skylanders portal. So it's basically a video game accessory that's battery operated. So we have like 30 of them. I had checked them one by one, checked the batteries. I threw some of them out because they had battery leaks. But at some point in time, there was a few extra that was added to our pile that I guess were not checked. So I thought they were, because they were in the box that were checked and verified. So Buddy buys this thing and I send it to him. And when he opened, I guess there's like a flow of
of the
dust.
corrosion or of the
So he left us the longest negative feedback, just saying livid, that we put his life in danger, that we're terrible, that this is the worst experience he ever had. And I mean, he didn't send us a message beforehand. I mean, if he would have, obviously so anyways, so I sent him a message and I was like, okay, our bad, that was our fault. That's very rare that something like that happens. So I said, listen, this was our fault. We're willing to work with you on this. I mean, like, he was really mad. Like, everything was in capital letters and he's saying like, and I was like, listen, we're sorry that this happened, but here are some options that what we can do. We can do a return if you want to return it. We can give you a refund, like whatever. So 24 hours later, he messages us and he basically says, all right, I overreacted. After speaking with my wife, she says that I overreacted. And it was something about the fact that his daughter was really sick and it was a birthday present for her. And he was emotional about the fact that it didn't, whatever. But he said that it wasn't as bad as it first seemed and he was able to clean it and get it to work. So we basically agreed to refund him anyways, and because it was our fault. And he changed it to a neutral feedback. But so he went from being a raging bull tearing down the house to just kind of like, all right, let's just make sure that doesn't happen again, kind of, right? But most people will be willing to change it. Like that's probably one of the worst feedback we've had, and it was 100% our fault. And even then we were able to get it to change, but you just have to show an openness to work with them. But most of the time it's not our fault. Like, it's just something that can happen. And so when you're selling, for example, we sell a lot of video games and electronics and DVDs and discs. So for whatever reason, if I pop a disc in my CD drive here in my computer, it could work perfectly fine. But if Commonlad puts it in his, maybe it won't. And it's just that not all disc readers are created equal, but people just go straight to rage mode sometimes. And you just need to learn to navigate that. And I'm a sensitive boy, I have feelings, and people don't really take that in because they don't care. They don't care about your feelings. They care about the fact that they spent $10 on something that was supposed to be working, but it isn't. But you can work with them and just kind of navigate through that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is you need to manage your own feelings when responding, because I've read messages that really pissed me off, but I had to walk away for a couple hours and then come back and respond, right?
Should always wait. always wait
You
before
always have,
never jump into it.
when you're tilting or when you're mad or when you're emotional, you need to put a pause between the stimulus that made you that way and your response, because otherwise, most often than not, you're going to say something that you regret, even if you're totally justified. I mean, like, you know, oh, we had another guy leave us a negative feedback, and he said something. It was so long. It was like a story. He was like, it was a $5 disc sent to the United States. We actually sent it at a loss just because we wanted to be nice. All right. And we realized we weren't charging enough for international shipping. So anyway, we just learned from our mistakes. But the guy sent us a message saying he never received the game and that he had reason to believe that we never sent it and that we're crooks and that we're this and that we're that. And it was just this long thing. And anyways, I was able to get that removed. But so if you make an effort, so we refunded him and we just whatever. And then we had to contact eBay because he didn't want to work with us. Sometimes the buyers will not work with you, but then if you made an effort and you did everything that you could, if you get the right kind of person at the eBay customer service, they'll remove it for you. But I think we should talk about the eBay customer service.
Oh man.
I'll let you start.
Yeah, I mean, I love the eBay customer service as the people there. I think they're really well trained, really professional, and actually quite helpful a lot of the time. That may be helpful. Well, they are helpful. So when you get on the phone with somebody at eBay, I mean,
they have a helpful attitude.
They have a really helpful attitude. It's very pleasant most of the time. I'd say they're oftentimes really trying to help you, and they're there for you. Like they really are. So I reach out to eBay quite often. I'm on the phone with them at least every week, if not multiple times a week. And just dealing with random cases. And like you said, I mean, there's feedback like where it's your fault. And that's the kind of stuff that you had to kind of sort out with the buyer. eBay is not going to help you as much on those. But then there's the feedback. Also, like you've given some examples of that's not your fault. And those are the kind of things where you can reach out to eBay, whether it's shipping related, whether it's just the buyer going ballistic, whatever it might be. That's the kind of stuff that you can reach out to eBay and say, this is unreasonable. And so as long as you have a good case, and again, I kind of think of it, you're kind of going like a mini court session. You got to have your facts prepared. You got to have your whatever it is that you know about the case, point out a few things in the listing, but the description said this, and it said this in the title, or the estimated shipping time was this, and blah, blah. Have all that stuff prepared. Say Canada Post has told us that this was a delay, or you guys have said that, we had this much handling time, or whatever. And come with those facts, bring them up with the customer service rep at eBay. Oftentimes they're going to be able to work with you based on that and be able to help you sort out a case, especially if it wasn't your fault. I think, again, this is one of those things where you don't want to call them right after you've gotten that angry message or the thing. Yeah. You don't want to go on screaming and yelling at them because, again, they're just in the same boat as you, but you're just passing along what the buyer did to them, which is totally unreasonable. Yeah. And that's going to make them as angry. So if you want to get help from them, you really had to be respectful of what they're doing, and you had to make sure that you're being respectful and kind in the way that you're talking to them, and try to really make sure that they're feeling like they can help you and that they're not. Don't make them upset, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with that. And I think as long as you kind of focus on that and you sort of, again, bring them all the details of the case, majority of the time you can get them to work. Now, there is what we were talking about again before the show, the odd thing where they'll say, okay, we'll get on the case. And then 2 days go by, 3 days go by, 4 days go by, and you don't hear anything. So again, and I'll let you sort of break down the two sort of things that they'll either do, which is, they'll do the ticket or they'll do the thing, but go ahead.
They're always going to say that it looks good. They think they're going to be able to get it removed or get it closed in your favor or whatever. But the unfortunate truth is that, so they're really nice. They're really helpful. They do want to help. But it's just that what they say and the result is often not aligned, if I can say it that way. So for example, the two neutral feedback I talked to you about is totally reasonable for me to get them removed. But I've called twice and they said that they would, and they're not still. So I'll have to call a third time. So I guess I'll put it to you like this. You will occasionally, or you will sometimes get the person who wants to help, but wants to follow their protocol to the letter. And they're just going to send it out into the machine and send it out through the chain. And when that happens, usually nothing happens. But you'll occasionally get that person that's going to be like, yep, what you're saying makes sense. I'm going to remove it right now. I'm not going to bother sending it to the feedback appeal team for them to review it. I'm just going to remove it right now. And within 24 hours, it should be removed. And usually within 5 minutes, it's gone. So sometimes you do need, unfortunately, to call more than once. But with some experience, you kind of get used to that. And depending on how they talk, you can gauge, what's going to happen.
For sure.
I learned so I was on a stream once, and I mentioned like sometimes I've had to escalate a call because I could tell that like it wasn't going to work out in my I know they were saying that it was going to be good, but just the way that they were talking, I could tell that they were just a cog in the machine. So I asked to escalate it. And here's my magic sentence. It says I cannot minimize Zoom. Okay. I have my magic sentence here, or I did.
I told you guys, he's a guy with words.
I'm the word guy. So I was on a stream once, and someone suggested that I approach an escalation request in this way, and it not word for word, but essentially it's okay. I appreciate what you're trying to do for me and how helpful that you're being, but I would like to ask for this to be escalated to the next level. It's not saying you're an idiot, you're not helpful, you're not this. It's just saying, look, obviously, it's a nice way of saying this is going nowhere. Send me to someone that can actually help me. And I've done that a few times, and they never expect it, but they've been very receptive of it.
Yeah.
And whenever I've spoken to a manager, you can tell the difference when you're talking to a manager and when you're just talking to like a frontliner. But sometimes you need to call more than once. And I mean, you're going to get familiar with what the boundaries are of what you can ask for. And of course, when it comes to removing feedback, they kind of always want you to go and do the feedback revision first. That's kind of what they want, because that makes them not have to do anything. But sometimes you have to call them, right? And so that's kind of what can happen, but you have to not get mad at them, right? I mean, they're just doing their job and they're just doing what they can do. But I will admit that this can be a frustrating part of being an eBay seller, especially in Canada, because there's a lot of stuff that eBay is really big on tracking numbers. If you have a tracking number, they will defend you from here to Mars.
It's true.
But if you don't have a tracking number, I mean, they just kind of leave you hanging out in the water. That's my opinion of it. But because there's no proof that you sent it. Even though we have the social proof of 3,500 people that said we're good, they still will take the buyer's side of it, because in a legal battle, there's no proof at the end of the day.
That's what I was going to say too. No, regardless of how large our stores are, the fact that we've been on the platform for this many years and this guy just joined this month and has no feedback to his name and said that, our items didn't receive. I actually had a buyer the other day. Speaking of that was a brand new buyer on eBay that had purchased 6 different things. And you can't leave negative feedback on a buyer for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I have no idea why or how that makes any sense in any world, but regardless. This guy purchased a game off of us, claimed that it didn't receive it. And then I go to this guy's profile and he's got like 10 positive feedback. And every one of the positive feedback is negative about him, saying this guy's a scammer. He won't ever pay. He didn't receive it, blah, blah, blah. And I reach out to eBay, and I actually did get this one solved. So I guess it all worked out at the end. But it was still, I reached out and I specifically told them as well, you guys need to shut this guy down. But in the case, or before I reached out to them, the idea that they would even favor him over me as a long-term seller, and him who was just joined the platform and has all this negativity around him within the platform, all these sellers, long-term sellers claiming that he's no good. I mean, it's just ridiculous that they would even consider taking that side. But they are very buyer friendly, and eBay's always looking out for the buyer, which makes sense. I mean, they're acquiring these customers and paying a lot of money for them in advertising and things. So they want to make sure they have the best experience on the platform. But I think in cases like that, that's sort of one of the reasons why reaching out to them and potentially escalating something in that case is the way to go. And Yeah, it's just you'll run into that stuff, especially as a new seller. So it's something to know about and to be able to work around.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen often. So I just want to
No,
say that it doesn't happen often. You'll get the occasional one though that'll raise your high blood pressure, but other than that, generally speaking, they're fine. But if you feel the need, you need to call eBay, call them. If you feel the need, you need to escalate, say what you have to say, do what you got to do, and then they're going to make their decision.
Mm.
I just wrote down two more examples of when you can get a feedback removed. And this is something that you mentioned earlier to me. And it one of the rules on eBay is you're not allowed to blackmail someone with a negative feedback. Basically, if someone says, I'm going to leave a negative feedback if you don't do this or if you don't do that, that is an easy close in your favor. You can
Easy
just
win.
even
Yep.
if he leaves you the negative feedback, you can call eBay and said, listen, this guy was extorting me for this, so I didn't want to deal with that. And they're just going to be like, yep, no problem. We're going to get it removed.
It's the magic statement from a buyer because you can win it every time. Give me a refund or else I'm gonna leave a negative feedback. Yeah. Hey eBay, check this message out. Done. So that's definitely one of the things you want to go for.
And another one that came to mind was when someone says an item is not as described, but it actually was. So we well, not recently, but like 6 months ago, we sold a Nintendo DS console, which is just a small handheld console, and it was clearly stated in the listing, in the title, that it had a broken hinge. So it's kind of it's two screens that kind of flips forward, and usually it stays like that, but this one was kind of flopping around because it had a broken hinge. But we charged like $20 less because it had a broken hinge, and it was in the item description and all that stuff. And the guy left us a negative feedback. He said it arrived quickly, it's in good condition, except that it has a broken hinge, and he left he left us a negative feedback. I'm like, dude, can't you read? And obviously I didn't say that, but I said, listen, this, from what you're saying, it arrived as described. So would you please remove your feedback? And he did. He's like, oh no, I didn't realize, sorry, blah blah blah.
And people don't like to read, but the description acts as kind of your fine print. And that's what we always look at with our games and everything. Like if you put in, like for all of our games, like we'll always put, like, the case might have some light marks and scratches, or the disc has light scratches, or the manual could have a crease, or whatever it is. People don't read the descriptions. Like, and that's obviously a clear example of that. Like nobody has time to read these, especially if we're writing paragraph descriptions, which we don't. We try to make them as quick and simple to the point as possible. Even with that, people don't read them. So that's where we get a lot of people that are coming at. And again, when we're saying a lot of people, when we're talking about these cases, this is a very small fractional minority of.
Yeah.
We're talking about 1% or 2%. Yeah. But regardless, a lot of people don't read the descriptions, and so you'll get these people who will receive a game or an item and they're very frustrated about it when it was clearly described that was an issue with it, and they simply didn't go through and read it. So I think that's another point to note. And again, when that happens, obviously you're in the right, and you may have to offer a return or whatever it might be. But for the most part, actually, if you have returns turned off, which is something that I've dealt with in the past, if somebody just doesn't like something or they didn't take the time to read it, you're not on the hook for that return or for that refund.
Yeah. So on the topic of returns, so we offer returns 14 days. We don't take international returns unless it was really not working or not as described. But for domestic, if you turn them on, you need to accept them basically for any reason. So we have them turned on, and if within 14 days they want to send it back, we have no choice but to accept. But by having it turned on, there's the occasional thing that gets sent back that's a pain in the butt, and you lose a little bit of money there because you need to pay the ship. Well, we have them pay the return shipping unless it was our fault, but it does get you more sales because people have more confidence. I can't give you a number because, like, I can't say you'll have 20% more sales if you offer returns. But I mean, think of if you're at a store and there's basically a sign that says all sales are final, no returns. And then there's a store across the street and they have a return policy. I mean, it's kind of less dangerous in a way. Like you have more options if you go there and you don't like it and just whatever.
It's true.
So it's just a choice. But I mean, when you're first starting out, it might not be a bad idea to not have returns on, just to limit those costs and those problems. But that's just an idea.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and I think the return policies are definitely a valuable thing to have. And again, you'll have to deal with more nonsense. And I mean, for the most part, still, when you're dealing with the returns, the buyers are going to be paying that return shipping back. And like I was saying to you earlier, we've had buyers pay more than the cost of the item and shipping to have an item returned, which is kind of ridiculous. But in the case where they're just in the wrong, or they just don't like it, or it doesn't fit, or whatever it is, they can often just, they'll send it back to you, and they like to do that. So I think offering returns does get you more sales, and does definitely rank you. Again, like you say, it's hard to put a number on that. I would assume it's probably somewhere in the 10 to 20% increase range if I had to guess. But again, that could be, it's just a ballpark, and I don't know. But yeah, I think for the most part, when you're starting out, offering returns is probably not where you want to go, because you can deal with a lot less nonsense, and again, potentially be able to win a lot more cases easier, or at least just not have to deal with some of the more tricky things around eBay with regards to the cases. And I think that's just one of the things that might help you when you're starting out, in terms of just simplifying things down.
Yeah, and there's a word that you said, ranking, and that just inspired me to say a little blurb here. So there's a lot that goes into the eBay algorithm as far as your ranking goes. So ranking is essentially, if I search for, I don't know, this CD right here, well, there's probably 100 people that have this CD for sale, but how good their feedback is, how good their price and pictures and all this stuff, they're gonna, someone has to show up first, right? And then second, and then third. But if you are on top of your feedback has an impact on the eBay algorithm and how you're ranked. Because if someone is consistently delivering a bad experience, they don't want to send their clients there. They're going to send it to someone else who might have a smaller store than you, but who has a track record of keeping those customers, right? So that's all I wanted to say about that. But the one last type of case that I just wanted to mention were cancellations. So cancellations for us, usually we don't really, oh, actually, I just thought of another one. But so cancellations for us, if someone tells us they want to cancel it, if they want to cancel a transaction and we didn't send it out yet, we just cancel it. I mean, like,
oh yeah,
what's
same
the point?
here.
I mean, you can send them a message and try to do a sales pitch, but why? Just relist it. But you have to remember to relist it, right? So because it's sold, and likely your listing has now disappeared because it's sold. So you need to basically do the cancellation and then just do list as, or relist, or
yeah, they have like a submit and relist for free or whatever off option that I think often pops up when you're doing the cancellations. But they're fairly straightforward. I wouldn't spend any time fooling around with that nonsense. I mean, if you've shipped it out, you can reach out. We've done it. It's been a case with us before where somebody will want to cancel something, and we'll say, "Oh, sorry, we've already shipped it out," and that's what it is. But if you haven't shipped it out, I don't want to deal with it, because obviously the buyer does no longer want that item. And that's going to mean there's going to be a higher chance of something going wrong or getting negative feedback when they do receive that item.
Yeah. So if you've already sent it out, you can decline the cancellation and say it already shipped out on this date. Now, if they want to press the issue, they can ask for a tracking number, which usually they don't. But
that would be a way around it.
Yeah. But it just got me thinking to the awaiting payments.
I was just about to say that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's how usually, here's another magic sentence.
Oh boy.
I usually when someone, we'll wait a couple days, because within, is it 3 days? Within 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, 3 or 4.
You're allowed to cancel a transaction and basically say they didn't pay. But maybe they just forgot. Some people never pay, but some people just forgot. So if you have the chance, like let's say you have 10 items that are committed to sell, but they didn't pay yet. If you message 10 of them, probably 7 or 8 will pay for it. But so you can just, within a few days, because eBay is going to send them reminders, but you can just send them a message that says, oh, hey, just a gentle reminder to please pay for this item so we can ship it out. And usually with that same day, they'll pay for it. Unless they never intended to pay for it, but usually they will. And I'll send 1 reminder, sometimes 2, and then we just, like if it's been a week, we just cancel it. and then we relist it. But
And eBay has a pre-formatted message for this as well, where you can,
Yes.
if you press send message under it, it will format a whole, I'm ready to ship this item out, blah, 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 and can you please send a payment? And then you can send that. Do you know, because I think they've recently changed it, you used to have to make a case out of it, right? A payment case. I think they've recently changed it to where now you can cancel.
there's
And one
no
of the
case
reasons
anymore.
now you just
a waste of time.
That's right. So they used to open a case where you would be able to, you'd have to reach out and whatever, and they deal with like, I don't even know. Anyway, it's just like any of the other cases. And then eventually after 3 days or whatever of the case being open and nothing happening, then they would close it in your favor, which was fine. But nowadays, I think, they just have a cancel button. You just cancel reason, no payment, and you're done after 3 or 4 days.
Way easier. It's
way easier. And I'm super thankful for that, because I mean, back when there were a few times where we had some super valuable items in a peak period where they would take down a $120 item that we were going to sell, or free shipping Tuesdays with Canada Post on Snapship, and we sold something for $60 free shipping and they didn't pay that day, and then the next day we couldn't ship it for free or whatever. Like there was some ridiculous stuff. So and so with regards to that stuff, like occasionally we would actually just cancel the items for a different reason and hope that nobody would notice, and then not even, because they had the cases and it was annoying, but now they've luckily fixed that feature. And anyway.
Actually, that makes me think of something else. So if that's when the buyer requests a cancellation, right? So something that is bad is to cancel it yourself. For like, if you're canceling it because it didn't pay, that's fine. That's not a problem. But if you cancel it, so you have like a few options. You have issue with the buyer's address, buyer asked to cancel, and item is out of stock or whatever.
Out of stock damaged, I think was the other. Yeah.
Like never choose that.
Gosh.
Because it's better, even if I'm not telling you to lie, but just choose another one of the options. Because if you say that it's out of stock, that's really bad for your ranking.
It will kill you on the ranks.
Yeah. And you can actually, I was on a stream with another YouTuber called the Buffalo Picker. And when he first started his eBay store, he didn't have a good inventory system. And I'm sure he would, like, he said this live, so I'm sure he doesn't mind that I would talk about it. But he does mostly Amazon, and he was learning about eBay, but he didn't have a good organizing system. So he would cancel like half of his, or many of his orders because he couldn't find them. And he didn't think it was a problem, but then they froze his account. And then they basically put him like on an action plan where baby steps he was he was able to list again. And like, so you don't want to give eBay problems. And if someone wants to buy, like before someone buys from you, they probably looked at 20 other listings and they chose yours.
Yep.
Because of a combination of the description, the condition, and the price. But so it's very annoying for a buyer to finally choose something and buy it, and then probably 2 days later get it canceled because you can't find it.
Brutal. Yeah, I mean, that's just the item. I'm happy to say that for my entire journey on eBay, I've never had to cancel an order because I couldn't find the item. I've had a very well organized system from the start that allows me to always find my items.
Yeah,
that's something that I'm sure we'll talk about one day or another day or whenever.
Yeah, soon.
Organizing, because there's more to it than just putting a pile of things in the corner of your room. I mean, maybe at the beginning that's what it is, but yeah, it's you never want to press that button. I totally agree.
Yeah, but I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up for today. What do you think? Is there anything?
I'm liking it. I think we've covered a lot of really valuable things. And again, guys, don't be afraid to get on the phone with eBay if you have a problem. I think also, I'll just add this in too. They've been very supportive on resolving things where maybe it's not even to do with the buyer, but it's just a question I have about the platform or something that I don't understand and that I couldn't find the answer to on the eBay platform or in the eBay forums, which are very helpful as well. eBay has a whole set of forums where there's questions and answers. But as a beginner, I wouldn't go and call them and ask them, how do I list an item? But you could definitely call them up and say, I'm really confused about this aspect, or I really don't understand how this buyer was able to do this. And they're able to work with you on that. So I'd say as a beginner seller, something else to keep in mind is that there's people for you, there's support systems in place, and you can reach out and solve things or get answers to things that you don't quite understand fairly simply. If there's a charge on your account that you don't understand, if there's a whatever, you can reach out and figure it out with them.
Yeah, this reminds me of an example where so we have a friend who helps us list things, and when he at some point, so eBay, when you're listing, you have a bunch of additional options you can choose.
This has happened to us too.
That has extra costs. So you can have really big pictures, or you can have a title in bold, but I mean that costs like $5 or whatever per item. If you're selling a car, you can afford it, but if you're selling a $2 game or whatever. So our friend had done this on like a bunch, everything he listed that day, just because it just copied over from one listing to another. So we had like, I don't know, $50 or $100 of fees that we didn't know where they were coming from. So I called them, and they credited us with that because it was a mistake on our end. But they said like, don't do it again, but we'll do this for you this one time. So we just fixed it. But like, you know, they're good. They're pretty good. Like
yeah, they're very helpful.
Yeah, they're helpful. But I think that's pretty good. We talked about a lot of good stuff. And so guys, make sure you like and subscribe. Drop in the comments if you have a question for us, for either about this or past topics or things you'd like us to talk about in the future, or maybe an interesting situation that happened to you, or if you need help with a particular feedback situation or whatnot, and we can try and help you out. And we're going to have links to both our channels in the description and all that. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.